Hello, everybody, and welcome to My Music. In a minute, I'm going to be speaking to Chris, quiz show, and actually, Chris. Before we start, and before I press this button on the video, what is your favourite quiz show?
Well, the best one is the Saturday Night Live version of Jeopardy. So I'll just
the joke version of Jeopardy.
Yeah.
Has to be that. There you go. Other quiz shows are available. If you're watching this and you've got a favourite quiz show, do respond in the comments. Until then, here's the video. Chris, thanks for joining me. I always felt, actually, growing up, I quite liked the Generation game because that was silly, which had like cuddly toys, other objects going past on the conveyor belt. You had to remember them, whatever. I think one of my favourite quiz shows of all time, though, has to be Family Fortunes. I think you call it something else in America, but it's the one where you ask a proportion of the community a question, and they have to come up with the blank,
right?
And then someone, yeah. And I think there's actually quite a good Instagram of that going around at the moment of that, where it's like a responsive type thing, and this guy's absolutely amazed that these guys are so stupid. It's like name an animal with 3 letters,
right?
And it's like, and the guy's going, "What's dog?" You know, the guy that's watching it's going like dog, cat, whatever, and the guy goes, "Frog." It's like, what? Where?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good show. I love that show growing up.
Yeah. Or it's a rude answer. That's always good, isn't it? It's a good, great on any of these things when it's a rude answer. We may have covered this before, but why quiz show?
Why the name? Well, I was first. I always tell this story. It's really hard to find a name for a band, especially when you have other people who have opinions. So, so I've been. I sort of settled on it. I was like, "Oh, that's got some great letters in it. Everyone will get what you're saying when you say it." I didn't think about the fact that more than once people have thought there's going to be a quiz show during the set. Like we're actually going to do that. That was a bad idea. But I actually came down on it because Pete Seeger has a song called Quiz Show, which is about how back in the 50s or 60s, people, there was this, scandal where people were giving people the answers, and it was all about making money for the advertisers and everything. So it was a, classic, good old school lefty kind of reference. So buried in it. Not many people know that song, but I was like, oh, that's a neat song, and that's a neat band name. So
yeah. Now listen, for anyone that hasn't heard your music, your sound, it's kind of reflective of presumably a number of your influences. I can hear, when I listen to it, I can hear sort of Husker Du, sort of Bob Mouldy Sugar type thing, etc. I can hear a bit of Pixies and stuff like that. Where were your influences growing up?
Well, I was in the band Shudder to Think back in the 80s, and so the music that happened when I was writing songs for that band was what you just said, Pixies, Husker Du. We aspired to be, we were part of the DC Discord hardcore scene, even though we weren't really a hardcore band. So all of those guys, Fugazi and Rites of Spring and Jag Nasty and all that were all influences. But also as a guitar player, I was a kid in the 70s. So what's now called classic rock, Zeppelin and AC/DC and Boston, and I mean maybe even like the Eagles or kind of things that were there. And I probably don't hear any of that, if you're not thinking about it. But it's just like that was the stuff I learned how to play guitar on. And I still do things that I can see. I was like, oh, that's like that Boston song.
Really?
Yeah. But yeah. And then basically I stopped playing music to start a different career after I started to think in 1992 and started again in 2017. And I don't think I really changed. So, I mean, I didn't keep up with anything. I kept my instruments and I would play just for myself. I never wrote anything until I started again. And so I feel that's what people are hearing. They're hearing a guy from the 80s, early 90s who never stopped because that's all I know how to do.
Yeah. So. I mean, actually, between the last time that I spoke to you and now, there's been quite a plethora of new sort of young guitar bands hit out there. Has anybody sort of caught your attention in the last 6 months or so?
Oh gosh, especially if you're talking about young people, I don't know. I listen. My technique to listening to music is I pick a song I like and I tell Spotify to play the radio version of it. And sadly, it always ends up going back to the same song. So it's a terrible algorithm because I end up. Basically, right now, it just always ends up on the Flaming Lips, and I'm not exactly sure why. I don't, so, which again is just a band from my era that persisted. So I don't know what's new out there that you think, and maybe I would have an opinion because sometimes I don't know what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I'll send you a little list.
Oh, great! Yeah. I could use some new stuff to think about.
Yeah. So, no, yeah. I think you'd probably quite like some of the bands, especially that are coming out of England at the moment. People like the Crawlers and Lime Garden and people like that. I think you'd really quite enjoy.
Oh, good.
Some of what's going on. so that's good to know. There's an educational front there. Listen, on this album, there's a song called "Sound of Kissing." What does kissing sound like?
I think we all know what kissing sound like. So we talk about.
Well, it's kind of something you don't really want to listen to, is it? Other people kissing.
Well, maybe unless you're involved in it. So,
well, if you're involved in it, it's fine, right? But listening to other people, it's just kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I don't know. I think we all know what it sounds like. But just, and the idea of it was sort of the accident of you're singing along with something and then you've sung something. You're like, hey, it's a nice little lyric. Let's work with that. So the song is about, hold on. My kid just got home. So the dog went off.
I love it.
So it's just... it ends up being a song about things that you love. So, so.
Do you do that quite a lot? Do you just kind of like pick up on kind of like random terminologies, random phrases?
Exactly. I am not a writer or a lyricist. The lyrics are the last thing to get to. And I let the melody drive it. So, the melody will sometimes make me say something. And I think that one, starts with, hey, listen. Like what it, and then blah 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 listen, and then that becomes I hear the sound of kissing. So it's it just kind of worked that way, and then it kind of once I have an idea, I try to make it coherent. But
yeah. But I quite like that because when people write like that, quite often some people then end up trying to find meaning in it. That's probably not there. Yeah. Do you find that? Do you find that with like people that listen to your music? Sometimes they sort of come to you and go, well, yeah, I think that means, and you're like, I have no idea.
Well, what happens is that sometimes people make you write like what the meaning of it is, and that's an adventure. I don't like writing about lyrics because they're often I don't know. I feel like I wrote the lyrics. Just read the lyrics. You know, having to reflect on what I wrote is not. I don't like doing that. And oftentimes that's what comes back, is they'll say, "Oh, you said this was about that, and you want to talk about that," which is usually fine. But it's like sometimes I'm like, I said that was about that because I needed an answer to a question, not really because I believe it.
Yeah, you'd prefer your art to be kind of a little bit abstract in a way. Really,
I'm not. I try. I mean, I write, end up in a lot of it sometimes has a political bent or an academic, you know, bent, because that's the stuff I think about a lot. You know, I work and my work is history, but it's, you know, about race and it's about inequality and things like that. So that's in a lot of the songs, just because that's what comes out.
Yeah. Did you find, once you've completed this album and you were and kind of looking back, did you find that there was a kind of personal agenda that was in there that you'd kind of felt that you hadn't necessarily deliberately put in there, but you could feel that it was coming out in what you were doing?
Oh, definitely. Just because the way that I did write about, you know, there's a song that's about, you know, trying to empathize with people who are struggling because of racism. There's a song about big banks. There's a song about I mentioned a Ponzi scheme that hit Long Island years ago, you know, kinds of things like that. And but at the same time, being able to include the lyric Ponzi scheme in the song, I thought was a triumph for me, you know.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. What's the weirdest thing that you've ever written down and then gone, do you know what? I've got to get that in. So I've now got to find like a rhyming couplet or whatever for that.
I don't know if anything's weird, but I really get a kick out of when you can have a lot of syllables in a word and have it work. Because you know, rock music generally is like, you know, beats, and so it tends to shrink words down. And so instead of having a lot of words, see if you can have something that's a long word that still makes it work. So in Sound of Kissing, there's resuscitate. That's the kind of thing, you know.
Resuscitate. Yeah. Have you ever seen the film Love Actually? The British film Love Actually. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So because it's that classic bit in that film where they've covered the song, you know. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh yeah, we've managed to fit in. And if you don't like Christmas, or if you like Christmas, or whatever, and it's got an extra syllable in it, and they're just so they're pleased in a way that they've managed to do something quite so naff, but get it to work.
That's right. That's a good one.
Yeah. No, that's it. What are there any surprises for you on this record?
Surprises, you know, you get all wrapped up in it. So I think the surprise is really the surprise that I can still write the music that I'm writing that just somehow is with me. It's not like work. If it was, I wouldn't do it, I guess, and maybe no one would, but it just kind of, I sit down, I pick up a guitar and I write something, and the structure of it or the feel of it or whatever, when I know it's working, it's just sort of it's effortless. So to have that be, I mean, not the whole process isn't effortless, but the creative spark there is just, I'm so happy it's there. It was, you know, when you're a kid, when I was in Shudder to Think, I was young and figuring out what I'm going to do with my life. And, you know, your worry is like, is this going to be a career, and how do I make it work? And you're trying to make things work. And I'm at a point where I get to just let things happen, which is so nice. And have you had
this thing, Chris, where, you know, having had that kind of career back then, and then you went off into the world of work and grown up stuff, and now you're enjoying your music again in probably in the right way now. But have you had this thing where anybody's come up to you and went, I started doing what I did because of Shudder to Think? Have you had that? Have you had anyone?
I've met some really, you know, it's really cool to have been in Shudder to Think, because after I left the band, they continued signed a major label, and the Pony Express record, which is sort of the top of the bill for them, really makes a huge impact on people. And so people are like, wow, you were in that band. But the best story about that is that my current bass player in this band in quiz shows, named Jesse Krakow, played on a Shudder to Think tour, and he was never in the band. He didn't write anything for the band, but he was a huge fan of the band. And so he tracked down Craig Wedren and said, I want to be the bass player. And I don't actually know how that ended up working out, but he did a full tour with them, and there's a live album, and he's on that. And it's kind of fun hanging out with him because he's such a fan. He knows more about the band than I do, not just because the era I'm not there. He knows like he'll drop some names of songs, and I'll be like, okay, Jesse, which one was that? And so he'd hum it, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. But yeah, it's a trip being with him because he's such a huge fan. Now, that's in addition to his, he's an excellent musician, excellent bass player. He plays all sorts of instruments and specifically all sorts of bass kind of formats as a career musician. But yeah, just being with someone who's like
That's nice that you're already, getting sort of some legacy feedback, which is nice, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. Because again, like there's no reason for it. It just got what happened, and it made it, and people liked it and listened to it. And now, I mean, it's like if Shudder to Think was to go around, everyone in the audience would look like me. That's what it is. We're all older, or they'll go down maybe 5 or 10 years younger, but obviously,
yeah. Younger. Is there something in your own personal record collection? Do you still keep physical records, by the way?
I don't. No. I have a box. My CDs are boxed upstairs because I don't have a way of playing them, and I gave away all my LPs a long time ago.
You have to get back to that. Dude, you have to come back into, you have to go back to the future.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's the right way to go. But okay, in your metaphysical box of albums, then is there a band along the way that you felt at some point someone will need to unearth this again, maybe through a documentary or something else, or I don't know, a re-release of a song that just never got credit for what in the way that they should have done? Who would that be for you?
Yeah, just thinking like the bands that I really knew well back then, I think, and I don't know, maybe they're more well known than I think, but there was a DC band called Nation of Ulysses, which was they released at least one record, maybe two, on Discord, and it was an unbelievable construction of a band. It was maybe 6 guys. They would wear suits. They were hyperactive punk rock performances. They were all young. I mean, to me, I thought they were young. They were probably 4 or 5 years younger than me, but there was just an energy there that was like, and it was something different. I mean, I think the name of the record was The 100-Point Plan to Destroy America or something like that. And it was just because it wasn't just the music, it was a performance. The band personality and all of that was all a performance, which, a lot of bands do, but a lot of bands don't. A lot of bands, especially punk bands, are just like, look at us in our skate clothes and our guitars, and we'll kick it out that way. But there was something special there. And I know that I see their lead guy was Ian Savonius, I think is his last name. And he pops up now and again. So I think he's still in the business or in the arts world in some way, but yeah, I think that would be the band that comes to mind for that, in terms of like, they could have really been something huge. Like, compare them to like 21 Pilots, which is only 2 guys, which in my opinion is really only 1 guy, and then another guy who hangs around. But that kind of intense energy when they play. And I feel like, think they could have made it that way. So they were maybe
Nation of Ulysses. I'm going to go and look them up afterwards.
Oh yeah, please do.
That sounds tremendous. And you say Ian, if you're watching, maybe I'll try and tag Ian in. Maybe you could, at some point you could, get in touch with Chris and perhaps do something. That would be great. Imagine that. We could just kind of like, you know, give you a kind of rose tinted moment into the past.
Nice.
And, you know, who knows what you would produce together, but it would potentially be nice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, have you desire to work with anyone in particular, or produce anything in particular going forward?
Oh gosh, I that's an excellent question. I really haven't thought about that because I'm already getting to work with people I can't believe they're so above my level. You know, the drummer on the LP is Kevin March, who is also a former Shudder to Think person, was on their last record and is now drumming for Guided by Voices, and which you may know puts out at least one, if not 5 albums every year. And Kevin, you know, we met each other. We live in the same town right now, in a suburb of New York City. So he and I just kind of found each other, and that's how this whole thing started. He's the one that brought me back. So, you know, I'm playing with him, and he's no longer a quiz show member because of his other commitments, but he and I still get together and play as a duo that will eventually record something, which will be fun. But through Kevin, like, I've gotten to meet Ray Ketchum, who runs the studio we work in, and, you know, Elk City and the associated things there. I mean, these are all the people that, you know, I knew or had heard of, and they're just still around, which is so great. I left and got to come back, so I always feel like the lucky little kid. Even though
Ray must know 100 people that you could.
Ray just it's amazing. And also, you know, his bandmate Renee Lobu is just, you know, they're so wonderful, and they live also in town, so that's handy. And they're also have kids, so we get to talk about that stuff too, because you can't it's hard to segregate that from your life. And so and you know, and it's, as a matter of fact, in the last couple of months, I've decided I'd just reach out to people through Facebook, to the, you know, people I used to know, and it's really been sweet, because people like you know, Girls Against Boys, which came out of DC as a band called Soulside, and then morphed into that as a separate project. And I just thought they were great, and I reached out just saying like, hey, you know, I'm back. And they were so nice. They were like, wow, great to hear from you, and like, by the way, the music sounds great. So I'm like, cool. So this just sort of idea that I can be remembered and maybe heard today, it's all I ever need.
Yeah. What do the kids make of your music then?
The kids? You mean the little kids? Oh no, they don't want it. They don't like my music. My kids. No, my daughter's a K-pop fan, so
right.
You can't compete with people who can sing like that. So
yeah, but Chris, what you've got to remember is, again, this is the thing, right? And I'll say this because my kids range in age from 8 all the way up to 22. Is that they start off by saying they don't like Dad's music, right, and then they go through a phase where they go like, yeah, and then, you know, really don't like anything that Dad does or Dad's music or whatever. And then what they start doing at some point is they start telling you that you should be listening to bands that you were listening to when you were younger.
That has happened, yeah. My daughter wanted to go to the Jane's Addiction show because she thought, I was like, okay, fine. Okay. We didn't make the show, but fine.
And it's great, isn't it, when they turn around and go, oh, you should hear this.
Yeah.
And you go, what do I say? What do I say? What do I say?
It's true.
Yeah. And then eventually what will happen is that they will really love what you do. That's it just takes time.
A long time. They got to become their own person. They can't like what we do while they're not yet themselves, because then they're not feeling like it's authentic.
No, you clearly love your books. You know, is there a book in you about music at some point, do you think?
Oh, I don't think so. I mean, it's a good question. Maybe it is. I don't. I'd rather just do the music. I have a thing about writing. I don't like writing about what you're thinking or doing. I like writing to create new material. So, I mean, and I mean that as an academic, I do the research and I do the writing, but I don't like to spend time writing about how we can make the history or the archaeology we do better. Let's just do the work and then let it speak for itself. And that sounds very empiricist of me, but it's not. It's I just feel a lot of people go down a theoretical rabbit hole, and in the end, they're not doing anything for anybody. It's just their own intellectual process, which is fine. But we don't all have to be part of that, do we?
No. So when you write, you're quite just analytical. Is that what you're saying? You're just kind
I'm
of
involved in what I'm involved in, and there's stories that come out of that, and I'm trying to relate those stories as accurately and as meaningfully as I can, because they're stories about people, many of whom are people I work with, in the sense of like I'm talking to descendants about their ancestors, and I want those voices to be telling their own story, and I'm just in the position of being able to give them a platform because I have a job that, as an academic, I'm positioned to write books or write articles or create things or teach about things that are get those voices heard. And so, I mean, I'm an anthropologist by training, so our whole point is to find the voices that are missing and bring them back.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
There you go. Well, listen, you're telling stories about yourself, albeit in a punky, mashed up, abstracted kind of way. Maybe one day somebody will write your story about you, and you won't have to do it. So
that'd be fine. I hope not, because I hope they wait till I'm gone. I don't even like seeing pictures of myself, so
because you might critique their book. No,
I just like their truth might be different.
Listen, it's always been a pleasure talking to you. Tell people about what's out there, when it's coming out, etc., so that people can go and find it.
So we actually released in March a new 3-song EP called Flotsam. 3 songs. One's called Super Concrete, which was released as a single, and 2 other tunes, one called Packing 'Em In and one called China Glaze. And so that's the newest, so a month or so ago, and that follows up the LP from last year and a couple other EPs that preceded that, all on Magic Door record label, all recorded at the Magic Door studio with Ray. And we're already started writing new things. Hopefully we'll have something new to release next year. That's my goal.
That's fantastic. Talking about concrete, saw an incredibly interesting documentary about concrete in Britain the other day. And what they're doing to keep bridges from collapsing. You wouldn't realize just how much infrastructure we built at one point using concrete that is literally falling to pieces, and it's a massive world issue, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it is. And because it's the bridges. I mean, and I'm sure you saw the story from a few weeks ago where the boat hit the bridge in Baltimore. I mean, that's not concrete, and that was not. I'm sure the bridge would have lasted for a long time, but that doesn't take much, right?
No, it really doesn't. Yeah. Oh dear, that was incredibly tragic story, and a shame for all of those involved. Chris, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Please do go and check out Chris Show's music. And if you enjoy it, please do let Chris know. That's what these artists would love to know. In the meantime, thank you for watching. This has been My Music with me, Graham Coath. If you've enjoyed this, please do go and do all of the subscription type thingy on the interweb. And we'll see you again soon with more of this. Until then, bye for now.